Now, before we go anywhere, let's be real about where you might be right now. Maybe you are one of the 300,000 plus Black women who have been laid off in recent months. You did everything right and you still got that call that you weren't going to have that job anymore. Maybe you are in real estate or maybe in finance and the market just is not moving the way it used to. And what you used to use before, what used to work before, just isn't working anymore. Or maybe you've been working hard on your dreams and putting in all this time and making all these sacrifices, and it's just not coming together the way you thought it would by now. Or maybe you're just tired of trying, tired of hustling, tired of trying to hold it all together because you've always held it all together. You're just tired. If any of that sounds like you, you're in the right place. And you are not alone. I'm here with you to walk through this journey with you. Now, I always like to share a little bit of information about who I am and where I've been so that you understand that I have been where you are. I know what it feels like to hit a wall that you really didn't see coming. Back a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to go after my PhD. Even though I was a mom and I had 4 kids and I had a job, full-time job, I thought, let me challenge myself to see if I really can do a PhD. Now, at one point I thought, no, that's too much to write. That's too much studying. I don't think I can really earn that. But then I thought, I'll just challenge myself. Let me just try. Well, I got into the program. So the first part of the program is to complete the coursework. And after you finish the coursework, you have to go through what they call the comprehensive exam. And so I was doing the comprehensive exam and thought that I was doing an amazing job at it, but apparently I wasn't because I failed the comprehensive exam. And to fail the comprehensive exam means that you can't go on any further to write your dissertation or to get the PhD. And that was almost devastating. I was frustrated because I had spent so much money on this. To be fully transparent, I had already spent about $45,000 on this education. And to think that I wasn't going to be able to finish that and get the PhD was like, oh no, that's not going to work. And then more than the money, I thought about how much time I had already spent on studying, like time away from my kids, time away from my husband, just time away from everybody. And so to find out that I had failed it was devastating to me. To say that I was stuck at that moment was an understatement. I decided that I would reach out to every and anybody to see if I could, how I could get through this, because I was determined to finish the PhD in my head, but had hit this crazy roadblock and thought I'm never going to be able to get the PhD that I was hoping to get. And at one point in my mind, I think I began to think like, maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was, or maybe I'm not as smart as other people. And what made me think I could even go after this anyway? Well, I reached out to my dissertation mentor and she was basically saying, yeah, that kind of sucks. You failed the comprehensive exam. I mean, like you could appeal it, but not many people win an appeal. And so after lots of crying, and I do mean lots of crying, about this whole thing and trying to figure out what I was going to do and how I was going to move forward, I just decided to make a shift in my mind. I just said to myself, man, I'm not quitting. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to appeal this. I'm going to reach out to whoever and whatever I could do to see if they would let me retake it or pass it. Well, long story short, I retook the comprehensive exam, and the second time around, I did so well that they suggested that I should share all of my research on that comprehensive exam with teachers and school administrators across the country. So really excited. But when I think back about that experience, what I realized is that I had to have a shift in my thinking. I had to change my thinking about failure, about all the time that I put in, and stop laboring over that and shift my thinking into believing that I could succeed at this. And because I shifted my thinking, I was able to ultimately complete my comprehensive exam and pass that, and complete my dissertation study and get my PhD. When I think back about that, and when I think back about all the times in my life where I felt stuck, The only thing I had was the shift in my thinking. That to me was the major thing that moved me from stuck to where I believe I am right now, which is unstoppable. I'd like to walk that journey with you. I'd like to help you get from stuck to unstoppable. And so in this first episode, we're just going to talk about kind of where you are right now and try to make some small shifts. So I want you to realize throughout this episode that everything starts in your mind. Maybe you're thinking you're stuck because you don't have the money you need, you don't have a job, you don't have this, you don't have that. And we're going to talk about using what you do have as leverage later. Your mindset, the way you see things, is the lens to everything that you have in your life. It is also the way that you will get through anything that you are stuck with. And let's think about that lens. If your lens is cracked, everything you see looks broken. And so we have to clean your lens in order to make sure that you start to see the truth and not any of those limiting beliefs. Now, this mindset thing isn't about toxic positivity. I've been accused of that before. You're toxically positive. That's not what I'm talking about here. And it's not really about pretending that hard things aren't hard, because life is hard. I mean, I live in a reality that life is hard. However, this is a strategic way of thinking about things. It's choosing the way you will think that works for you instead of working against you. When you're stuck, your thoughts feel like dead weight, like you can't move. You don't know where to move. You wake up every day and you don't know what to do next. You're tired. You don't want to do anything because you think that all the effort that you've done before just isn't going to get you anywhere. But the problem isn't that dead weight. The problem is how you're thinking about that thing. And so what I want you to do is start to shift the way that you think about that thing so that you can begin to move in a more positive direction. Now, I'm not talking about just an overnight shift and I was stuck yesterday. Now I'm unstuck. What I'm talking about is just a small shift in the way that you're thinking about that thing. And so in order to do that, what I call a 1 degree shift, what I want you to do is consider this. It's sort of like turning a steering wheel 1 degree. At first, you barely notice it. You know, when you were learning to drive, what was that, the 10 and 2? It's like turning the steering wheel 1 degree, a little at a time. At first, these little small shifts, you don't notice them. But if you keep doing that, a few miles later, you're going to be in a completely different place. You will have almost turned all the way around. And that's what a mindset shift does. It is just turning a little bit, turning your mind and turning your thoughts just a little bit until you turn yourself into a more positive direction, essentially getting unstuck. Now, I want you to consider this. Proverbs 23:7 says, as he thinks in his heart, so is he. What you think about yourself, what you think about your situation, what you think about your abilities, it shapes who you become. Now, this isn't about mind over matter as much as it is about aligning your mind with the truth about who you are. Not just who you believe you are, but who God says that you are. All right? So we're going to do something in this podcast that maybe you've never done in a podcast before. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a little exercise I like to call the thought audit. Now, what I'd like you to do is pause this video, go ahead, grab a journal, grab a notebook, or do like my mama used to do, just grab an old envelope and a pen. And I want you to write something down for me. Now, a journal would be great. So go ahead and pick up a nice journal. And if you're going to take this journey with me, a journal will be useful because you'll be able to write. There will be more of this where I ask you to sit and reflect, because this isn't just about what I'm thinking. This podcast is really more about what you're thinking and how we're going to work with your thoughts over the course of this time. All right. What I'd like you to do is, again, pause this video if you haven't paused it already. And now let's, okay, you probably already paused it. All right. So now I want you to write this question in your journal, and then I'm going to play a little soft music and you are going to answer this question. What story am I telling myself about my life right now? What's that story? I think years ago we used to hear it often. This is the story I'm telling myself, or the story I've been telling myself is, many people will say that in a conversation. But I want you to think about being stuck, and I want you to write down the story you've been telling yourself. Some examples of the things that you might write when you write this down is, I'm too old to start something new. I had a student in one of my courses, and she actually decided to go back and get her master's degree after, I think she's in her 60s. The story that she was telling herself was, I'm too old to start something new. Maybe you're telling yourself, I'm too far behind to catch up. I was talking to my young adult children, and they're talking about just the influence of social media and how they're looking at their peers, and a lot of their peers are married, or they have kids, or they started a family, whereas my children haven't quite done that yet. And so they sometimes think, when looking at other people on social media, that they're too far behind. They haven't caught up. Maybe they should have kids. And so they're feeling stuck because they haven't made those moves. Maybe you're telling yourself, good things happen for other people. That's not for me. That's not for me. That's not for me. I can't do that. My people have never done that before. Nobody in my family has gone to college. I have to just struggle like everybody else has, whatever that is. Maybe you're telling yourself, I'm just stuck and I just don't see a way out of where I am. I hope to change that as you watch this podcast. Now, go ahead and write down where you are right now. What is that story that you're telling yourself? All right, welcome back. Now look at what you wrote, and I want you to ask yourself this question. Is this story true? Or is this just a really heavy thought that you have been telling yourself? Is it a fact? But this weight that you've been carrying is also keeping you stuck. And if you read it over and over again, is it really true? Are you really too old to go back to school? Are you really not smart enough to start your own business? Are you really one of those people that good things doesn't happen for? Were you like me? You just thought to yourself, maybe I'm not smart enough. Now, if you have found in that moment that what you wrote is not really true, it just seems like it's true because it's the story you've been telling yourself all this time, then what you have done is found your fulcrum. That's Fulcrum, like full and then a crumb, like from a cookie. Anyway, I digress. But what you're beginning to do is find your fulcrum. You're finding that pivot place where everything shifts, where you decide, you know what, this is the story I've been telling myself, but this may not necessarily be true, right? And you can't shift where you are until you look at and examine and challenge the story you've been telling yourself. So that thought that you wrote down, when you pause the video, remember that it is not going to help you move from stuck to unstoppable. And that's what we're trying to do, right? We want to move from where you are. We got to move from stuck. And I'm not asking you to get unstuck today, as I said before. But what I am asking you is to challenge that belief that you currently have. All right. The reality is the real estate market may be down right now. But what is it that you can do? What is it that says about you? Is it really you? Because the fact is that the business isn't moving the way it needs to. But that's not the truth about you. That isn't a reflection of you. It may just be you have to try something different. All right. So now that you've looked at what's been playing on repeat, that story you've been telling yourself, here's the next question. What can you replace that story with? How can you replace that story that may be a fact as it relates to the job you were laid off, but that doesn't mean that you're not smart or that you are not capable of finding a better job or starting your own business? So I want you to think for a moment with what you wrote down. How can you replace that with the truth about you? Philippians 4:8 says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And I want that to be your filter. I want that to be the thing that takes up the space in your mind now. So rather than this thought that you had before, the story you were telling yourself, how can you shift that a little bit to make it work for you and not against you? Keep in mind that small shifts in your thinking can make big changes in your life. And that really is what the Fulcrum mindset is all about. So I want you to say this out loud to yourself. I want you to make this declaration. I've done hard things before and I can do them again. And I know it might be hard to say that because you're tired. And usually when you're tired, you're thinking, I don't want to do anything else hard. I just want to kind of resign from this whole thing because life is just life and I'm tired, right? But I want you to say to yourself, and I want you to think about it. Have you done hard things before? And what happened as a result? Right. So you can do hard things again. All right. So I want you to let your mind hear your voice, speak truth over your situation, rather than those limiting beliefs that maybe you wrote down in that journal. Now, what we did today is just the foundation of the Fulcrum Mindset Method. Inside the Fulcrum Mindset community, there is a full course that I wrote called From Stuck to Unstoppable. I poured my heart and soul into it. I would love to have you join us in the community, not only to check out the course, but to be around like-minded people who can support you and in some ways offer you some accountability, because sometimes when you're working on yourself, you're by yourself. And if you don't meet your own goals, nobody knows. But if you come into a community, we can offer you some accountability. I'll challenge you a little bit every week and ask you, did you do that thing that you said you were going to do? Right? And I would love to walk through this journey with you. Now, in the course, if you decide to take the full course, we will go much deeper into this. We'll do a little belief audit. What are those things that you're believing about yourself? We'll do some personalized declarations and have you change your mind about those things you believe in about yourself. But again, we're going to offer a community of people, and I've kind of hand selected some of them who are there to support you and walk through this journey with you. If any of this has resonated with you, I'd love to have you in the Fulcrum Mindset community. And there's a link to that in the show notes. So what I'd like you to take away from today is that your mind is that pivot point. That's the place where everything shifts, right? I want you to remember that what happens in your mind doesn't stay there. It shows up in your life. So if you get your mindset right, you can get your life together. You can move from stuck to unstoppable. I want you to know you're not just stuck because you lack potential. You may be stuck because of the thinking that you have had about yourself and about your life. In the next episode, we are going to look at the beliefs that shape your thinking, and we're going to talk about how those specific lies are keeping you where you are and keeping you stuck. We're going to begin to work towards that stuck to unstoppable. So please join us in the next episode.